I have here with me the Danessa Myricks Lightwork Volume 6 Freedom Palette. I know I said this didn't interest me, but it's the 6th palette. If one comes out every year, this is the 6th year, and I still haven't tried one of these. If I were to get one, it would be this year's because apparently the packaging is revolutionary. As always, I'm a little skeptical about higher price tag items, whether they are a good value or not. So let's try this on and see whether it was a good purchase. So it comes very securely and tightly wrapped. I actually took it out of its packaging to check whether everything was okay, nothing was broken. And I don't think it could break because of how safely it was packaged. So it comes like this. This comes off really easily, so I hope the magnets are strong enough to hold this. Everything is just packaged and wrapped. There's lots of inserts. I kind of want to peel this off. There's a styrofoam in there. So a bunch of packaging, which I don't think anyone mentioned. So I'm kind of scared to turn it over to read the backside because I'm afraid they'll fall out, but let's see. Yeah, they did not fall out, so that's good. There's the shade names at the back, and then there's this thing that covers the front. I'm not gonna do a demo of all the rearranging because that's kind of not what I'm interested in. There's the little mirror that stacks with all the little things. I'm not traveling a lot at the moment, so I wouldn't necessarily pick this up for the travel purpose, but I'm more interested in the pigments inside. I can still see some styrofoam. Let me rip that out. Yep, it was just a little piece. Okay, so these little things apparently pop out. How do the pans come out though? Do they come out like this? I'm not sure. So there's little grooves on the side of each one, so you can kind of push it out with your nail or something similar. So I am seeing a bunch of shifty shades, and since I use a lot of indie brands, I want to see how it compares. I want to give some shade descriptions because that is something that to me is missing, because every time I see these reviews they start with the looks. I want to see the shades in pictures, but since that is not always the truest reflection of what the product actually is, I prefer to hear shade descriptions as well to make sure that it's not something I already have in my collection. But this does seem to have some more unique pigments as per the videos I've watched so far. I'm going to start with the pink side. Let's start at the top. Here are the first 6 shimmers. The first one is an icy iridescent shade. From straight on, it's like a lilac pinky shade, and soon as you turn, it turns a gold to a green, and it is very shifty. It's not one of those lower quality subtle kind of multi-chromes. The second one is, it's a light mauve base with lots of silver sparkle. Mostly you can see the silver, but there's just a hint of that mauvey tone. The next one is a pink to a gold green kind of multi-chrome that we often see from brands. There's 2 variations of these. So the first one is a lighter pink, very sparkly, that turns to a lighter gold. This one has quite a bit of fine sparkle in there. The next one has more of a stronger base, and the color isn't a lighter pink like the previous one. It's more of a deeper magenta pink, and this also has sparkle running through it, and it turns to a gold green. Next up are the 2 satin shades. One is a magenta and the other is a purple. The magenta has like kind of a reddish background with a slight pinky shine. The purple one is like a purple base with some blue kind of shine on top of it. These took quite a lot of building up, so I'm not sure how they'll perform on the eyes, but I will put them to the test. Next up is the middle blue 6-pan. Starting with the icy blue iridescent shade. This is beyond shifty and sparkly. From straight on, it's like a teal sea green, and it shifts to a pink purple. Very shifty. Next one is another one of those wet finishes. It's actually a cream consistency. It turns gold, but the base is very white. I'm going to spread it out a little. It's kind of like a icy peach to a gold. It's a kind of a strange color. It's a very creamy shade, so a lot comes off and you really have to distribute it to see the color. This was one of the shades I was really looking forward to. This has a very strong blue base and it turns to a gold. This goes from straight on a gold warm green to a blue green. This was one of the shades that I wanted this palette for. And it doesn't disappoint. This is an interesting shade. It turns from this purple here to like a gray blue on the side. These satin shades are actually a cream formula as well, I believe. This is the satin. This is like a dull, cool purple. A bluey kind of purple, unlike the one in the previous expand, which was like a more pinky purple. And last in this collection is this gorgeous purple. It's not reading that well on camera, but it's actually a very deep purple, and you can see when you turn it to the side, it's just a very deep purple. I don't think it's a multi-chrome, but it's a unique shade. That was the blue 6-pan. Now let's move on to this one right here, the more earthy tones 6-pan. Starting with the gold green multi-chrome on the top. This is also a cream. This is one of those conventional multi-chromes that we have. Like a copper to a gold to a green. But this is good quality and quite shifty. This is quite a pigmented satin shade. The previous ones were not as pigmented. This is another green. This is like a bluey green that goes from straight on, it's a warm green that goes to a bluey green and then a purple. I'm pretty sure I have something like this in my collection from indie brands. Next is another shade that looks gorgeous in the pan, like a yellowy orange. This is a very finely milled powder. I'd say this is from straight on a peachy pink that goes to a yellow gold to a slightly green gold. It's like a sister multi-chrome to one in the pink 6-pan palette. Let's compare the two. So the one at the bottom is the one I'm talking about. So these two, actually maybe you can't see this in the camera, but the top one is more peachy, this one is more pink. When it turns, this one is more green, whereas this one is more of a light gold. Light yellow gold. For the last two, we have this really pretty yellow shade. I would say this is very much a greeny yellow from straight on, and it shifts to slightly blue on the side. But it's not the most shifty shade. It is very sparkly though. Last is another one of those iridescent shades. It's again kind of like a peachy shade straight on, and then shifts to a gold and green. It's supposed to be an iridescent, but it looks nothing like it looks in the pan, which is very surprising. At a harsh angle, this also goes like a bluey green. Let's see how does this shade compare. Look at these three shades. This one has a bit blue in it, this one also has a bit bluey green in it, and this one is very warm orangey. So some initial thoughts. The packaging is nice, but that has nothing to do with why I bought it. I think it's good for someone who wants to travel with these. However, for me, this palette falls short on one main thing. I think quite a few of these multichromes are pretty similar. Quite a few of these have the same pink peach to gold green kind of shift, and that's why I'm not entirely sure about this. So even though they look very different in the pan, they can be quite similar or give a quite similar result on the eyes, which we will see when I try them on. That's the main reason it's not hitting the right spot for me. There isn't enough variation. But these two, they still look pretty similar in the pan. This, and this, these also have similar shifts to these two. This is how they look. The first two are similar in their shift. The third one is more of a peach from straight on, and the fourth one actually shows very much green, so I don't think this fits in this category. I think it's a little bit more different than I initially thought. This is how I would group the pink to green shifts. Some of these are, the top two are cool tone pinks. This one is more of a fuchsia pink. This one is a peachy pink, but they all go from that pink to gold to green. And the greens have varying shades of coolness. Some are yellow green, some are more bluey green. But it is a very similar kind of multichrome. These two are similar versions of the same multichrome shift. The top one has more of a white base and the lower one has a black base, but their shifts are essentially the same, copper to green to gold. The rest are fairly different from each other, but there definitely are redundancies within the palette. I think other multichromes with different kind of shifts could have been incorporated, or maybe holochromes, or maybe sparkly toppers, or something different like we see in the Endley Rain palettes. So the finishes here are more closer together than some of the other brands that do special pigments. And there's 4 of those satin shades. For the price you're paying, I'd say those satin shades aren't special enough. 2 of them lack in pigment. There are 14 special shades and 4 satins. One thing I will give to them though, they don't have the same flaky kind of formula that many indie brands have, and the average consumer might find difficult to work with, like using glitter glue or things like that. I think this is more of a hassle-free kind of application. Especially with the creams, they will adhere to your eyelids, I think, quite well. But we'll have to find that out in the try-on portion of the video. Let's smack these on the eyes. The eyes are primed. I want to try these 2 satins on one eye. These seem to lack pigment and did not swatch well, so I want to see how they will do on the eyes. Here is the pink one. Okay, the pigment is not too bad on the eyes, although I did have to build it up a bit. Let's do the purple. These do have a slight shine to them. On the other eye, let's do this blue satin and the brown satin. This could be blue or purple, depends on how you see it. It's either a very cool tone purple or it is a purpley blue or bluey purple. Take your pick. Now for the brown, this is actually a very nice shade of warm brown. I like this one. This had a good level of pigment as well. I'm not really doing a look, I'm just trying them on the eyes. I'm going to pick the most special shades and put them on the eyes. Special according to me. Let's do this one. I'm curious to see how it looks on the eyes. Sometimes shades like these swatch well, but they don't translate to the eyes. Let's see if that's the case with this one. It's quite nice, but it's not the most special shade in this palette. Let's try this one. This is more of a cream formula. This is good, simple, no hassle kind of multi-chrome. Let's try this yellow shimmer. I actually like this shimmer. It's not a very special pigment, but I actually like this. Let's use one of the iridescent shades for the inner corner. I want to try this one because this was kind of a problematic formula. It is a cream shade and too much comes off and it looks a bit weird and you have to disperse it. Let's see. It's kind of crumbling, so I was right. It has too much of that white that kind of concentrates. It's a nice peachy kind of shade, but you really have to distribute the pigment, and it's not my favorite thing in the palette. Let's do this iridescent lower lash line. No idea how that's gonna go, but let's just smack it on. This is also going to show up pink, I can tell. And last, let's try this yellowy pink shade. You can see that apart from the yellow shimmer in the middle, the other shades kind of look a little similar. Okay, let's move on to the other eye. The blues and the purples have more variation in them, which I like. I want to try 3 shades on the lids and then the iridescence for various other spots. First, let's do this one. This blue shade is so gorgeous. I thought it was just a duochrome with a gold shift, but it is actually a multi-chrome with various color shifts. It does go from a blue to a green as well. Let's try this shade next. This is also a special one, I believe, in this palette. It's like a muted purple with like a gray-blue kind of shift. This is also one of the more different ones. Not unique because I believe I've seen this kind of a multi-chrome from Cleona. but this is still interesting enough for a mainstream brand like Danessa Myricks. This one truly is unique, I think. Let's try this one for the outer corner. This one is truly kind of a unique shade in my opinion. It's very dark purple when you stare at it from straight on, but when you turn it to the side, it almost turns black, which is fascinating to me. This is how everything looks so far. Let's do this iridescent for the inner corner. This iridescent shade I don't mind. I think it has more of a squishy texture, but not a lot comes off like the other one I showed you. And it went on really smoothly. I like this one. This is also an interesting shade. It's like a green to like a purpley blue. Let's do this on the lower lash line. It's showing up as a warmer green compared to the iridescent over here, the blue here, more of a yellowy green, if you will. Which is interesting because it shifts to like a murky purple, at least in the pan. This one is also quite nice. This one probably doesn't fit into the theme, but this is the only one left, so I want to try this. Let's use this one on the remainder of the eye. This is that copper to a green to a gold. Cream formula, I think it's going to be excellent quality as well. Not the most unique shade, but a good quality in any case. So, final thoughts. I think you should buy this for this side and not this one. You can see how much more vibrant this is and how the shades are quite different from each other. Whereas on this color scheme of things, things kind of do get a little bit more similar than you would want in such a pricey palette. Personally, I would have been okay if the satin shades weren't in here. I don't think they add too much in terms of value to the palette because you're gonna have to use another matte palette anyway with this. So if these were special shades as well, I think it would make for a higher value. I think there's a little bit of duplication. That is why I'm not entirely sold on this palette, especially given the price tag. I think I will keep this in my collection. However, I would say the verdict on buying this full price is a no. But otherwise, these are nice, but these are quite standard multichromes apart from a few that I showed you. I think this deeper purple here is pretty unique. This one is quite a good one. This one is also pretty nice. This one, again, the blue purple side really wins. This is definitely a nice shimmer, but it's not overly special. This shade I absolutely do not like. It is a mixed bag, but there could have been just a little bit more variation to make this worth my while. For example, these two shades, like I mentioned, too close. I'm glad I tried it, but I think my experience of it is on par with what my expectations were. I knew these were going to be good quality, but the selection would be not perfect for me because I have quite high expectations. I would prefer an Adept Cosmetics palette over this, or Ensley Rain palette, or Bella Beauté bar. I think these three would be my top contenders over this one. Those are all my thoughts. I hope this was helpful to anyone who's still not sure about this palette and whether they should buy it. I don't know if these go on sale, but I would say hold off for that, because for what you're paying for this, you can get much better variety of pigments in indie brand palettes. That is my opinion. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.